Talk about the phase 2.
Morning, Haslinda.
Are we set to get there?
Well, based on the current assessment of the situation, I think the conditions remain stable. The infection is under control. So we are indeed planning towards a phase 2 reopening before the end of the month. The key is for us to do this safely, and we are doing so by stepping up our testing and tracing regime so that we are in a better position to control the spread of the virus. But I think what's also very important is for everyone to understand we are not going back to life before COVID-19. In many ways, the pandemic is a reset button for all of us. Life will be different, and we have to be prepared for major changes in our way of life. And that would include embracing new habits and norms like social distancing and better hygiene, but it would also include adjustments in many aspects of our lives, be it leisure, entertainment, working from home, or having virtual meetings like what we are doing now.
Minister Wong, just to clarify, when you say that phase 2 is set for before the end of the month, are we looking at June 22nd, June 15th? Can you give an exact date to that?
I can't give an exact date because we are still monitoring the situation. What we have said is we will provide an update by the middle of the month, which is coming up next week. So by the middle of the month, based on our assessment of the situation then, we will then decide the exact date of going to phase 2. And with the start of phase 2, we expect virtually the entire economy to be reopened, shops, F&B dining, social interactions, but there will be limits on the number of people who can get together.
More importantly, people are now talking about travel bubbles. When do you see Singapore being able to do that, to be traveling to regional places like Thailand?
Well, we have already been in discussions with various countries on green lane arrangements where we would allow travel subject to new protocols and arrangements and safeguards being put in place, including testing arrangements on both sides. So these are ongoing, these discussions. We've started a green lane with China, 6 provinces and municipalities in China, and we will be continuing to expand these green lane arrangements with various countries. So we do want to expand these travel bubbles. Initially, it will be for travelers for essential work reasons, but over time, we can expand this for non-business travel as well. But I think we should also be realistic. I think it will take us some time before we see the resumption of mass market travel for tourism reasons.
Singapore is seriously looking at contact tracing, requiring pretty much everybody in the Lion City to have that device. So far, though, the government says it's not mandatory. What will it take for it to be compulsory?
Well, Haslinda, I think must start from the premise that contact tracing is not simply a matter of using technology tools. It is fundamentally a human endeavor that requires the skills of our contact tracers. And that's why we have put in significant effort to expand the team and strengthen their capabilities. Having done that, I think technology can be a useful enabler. And that's why we have the Trace Together application on the smartphones, as well as now looking at Trace Together tokens and devices to supplement the smartphone apps. And if we pull all of that together, we have already today, despite the not comprehensive take-up of Trace Together, we have today shortened the duration in which we are able to do active sort of mapping of any of the contacts of any infected person. It used to take us 2 to 3 days to undertake such a mapping of the active contacts. Now we can issue a quarantine order in less than a day. So the capabilities have already increased significantly, and we will continue to monitor the usage, the take-up rate of the Trace Together app, as well as the wearable devices, which we are rolling out by the end of the month. And we will see if there is how best to encourage everyone to use these devices and tools because they will help to control the spread of the virus and ultimately save lives.
Minister, do you envision a scenario where contact tracing becomes compulsory, given what we're seeing right now, already the start of a second phase for virus infections?
Again, we will try to start by persuading and explaining to the population why these tools are important. I think that's a very important mindset that we want to inculcate, rather than to do everything through mandatory rules and requirements. I think we would like us to try and do our best to encourage people on their own accord, because this is something that will protect themselves, their family members, and their loved ones. So download the app on their smartphones, and if you don't have a smartphone, or if the app is not so compatible with your phone device, then eventually we will make available a wearable token, trace together token, which they can use. So eventually, if the take-up rate goes up to a significant proportion, then there may not be a need for mandatory rules to come in.
Minister, when you take a look at the numbers in terms of hospitalization, ICU numbers, these have been pretty low. Deaths among the lowest in the world as well. Does that give you space or room to possibly accommodate more people coming back, especially those long-term work pass holders?
Well, that's certainly something that we are looking at very carefully. We have been able to ramp up significantly our healthcare capacity. And so if you look at our healthcare system now, we have 2 people in ICU for COVID cases. And we have more buffers than we used to. We have ramped up our testing capacity, and we also have more rooms available for quarantine. So with all of that in place, we do think there is scope for us to be able to allow more long-term pass holders, work pass holders who have deep roots in Singapore to return over a period of time.
Minister, before we let you go, you lead the task force for COVID-19. You're also Minister for National Development. We know that Singapore is on its way to holding an election. As part of the top leadership, what's the party's targets for this election?
What do you mean by target?
What do you hope to achieve? What kind of mandate are you targeting?
Well, first of all, I think the focus for us as a government, particularly for me in this role as leading the task force, really is to continue to put all our attention and resources in controlling the spread of the virus, and then to see how best we can reopen our economy and our society in a safe way. So that remains our key focus during this very critical period. If and when an election is held, I think we will still remain focused on our task and our mission. And then when the election is called, Singaporeans can decide, and they can judge for themselves and assess for themselves the government's track record, the government's performance over the last 5 years, and particularly during this crisis period. And at that stage, we certainly hope that Singaporeans will give us a strong mandate so that we can continue to do all that we can, working together with Singaporeans to overcome this crisis together.